Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Ian with Vetrepreneur. I'm here with Brandon Shelton, managing partner of TFX Cap. Brandon, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
You know, it's a great day. This is the fifth session for Vetrepreneur Week. Brandon is awesome, and I want to thank him for giving some time. He writes checks to entrepreneurs like you, both small, medium, and well, I guess bigger than medium. Brandon, tell us a little bit about TFX Cap and what you guys were working on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're based here out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So maybe not the first place where people think that really cool technology startups are being founded, but we are, and I can give you some statistics in that, especially from the veteran angle. But yeah, Task Force X Capital. We've launched in earnest this year with our first funds. We've executed four investments. We're a venture capital firm focusing on investing in high-performing military veteran founders in the technology and tech-enabled business service spaces. And our remit is nationwide, although we have been trying to aggregate a bit here in the Southeast, really because of some of those statistics, which I can talk about later. But we see deal flow from all over the country. We, like you said, 300 checks of about 300,000. So we probably are, although we look at it, I've noticed in the early days of doing this, and I'm not by no means an expert, but looking at folks who are trying to do like 100 or 200,000 sort of starter round or whatever they want to give it its name, we'll try to help them, we'll try to network them, but we normally don't participate there because they're probably just sort of dipping their toe in the water. And we've only executed one Series A participation. That was with Street Shares, but that was strategic given our remits. So we're right in the middle. So if someone is raising, a team is raising between about 750 to 1.5 million, that only means they're thinking out about 12, 15, 18 months. From my own personal strengths and background, that is something that I can connect with as a strategy guy and a planner, and obviously our investors are very active, our enablers and supporters are very active, and so we can kind of marshal that task force of a network around you if you're raising that type of capital and thinking out that far.
And I love your mission-driven, people-focused, because I think it really shows the military community is so mission-driven, and a lot of times you go into the civilian sector and you might not have kind of that North Star working for whatever organization that you go to work for. But for entrepreneurs, you want that mission driven, and ultimately it's about founding teams. So I want to talk to you about what you look for in founders, what you look for in product, what you've seen kind of the truth from the ground of talking to hundreds and hundreds of veteran entrepreneurs, and we'll get into all that stuff. So if anyone has any questions in chat, just fire them away and we'll get to them. Otherwise, we'll probably go through about 25 to 30 minutes of dialogue on this stuff, then open it up for Q&A. So yeah, let's get started. So what do you look for when you first start talking to a founding team, and kind of the composition of that and the folks that you've worked with so far?
Yeah, so I think to answer that question adequately, I'm going to assume, I don't know how many folks we have on, but I'm going to assume all of the folks on are a veteran entrepreneur or probably a military spouse, active duty, or whatever it may be, but somewhere connected within 1 degree of separation in the military. And I don't want to get on a soapbox and tell you about what's working, what's not. Like I said, I'm not by no means an expert. But in my life experiences, I've seen some parallels. And so what are we trying to do is to get on the TFX shoes and see how I and our team looks at it is that you serve, to be honest with you, doesn't matter for us. We, just like every American, we thank you for your service, but we don't say that. What we care most about as relates to the investment thesis is how you served. That's not an officer enlisted thing. That's not a West Point or non-West Point, which I hear all the time. I don't care how many degrees you have, where you physically live, who your parents were. Some of these things that, as you know, are out there. Unfortunately, not all veterans make great business people. Not all veterans, frankly, are good people. And that's really hard for anyone who's never served, which is the vast majority of our professional society. That's really hard for them to say, recognize, articulate, adjudicate. So it has to be veteran on veteran. And we do this in I bet you every single person on this call does that in their own right. So do you go to a VFW meeting? Do you tell people you're veterans? Is it on your LinkedIn profile? Everyone's left to socialize and rationalize their service in their own way. Some people had great experiences. Some people had horrible experiences. Some people have had in between. But as it relates to starting a company, it's not that we're like, ooh, veterans in general, big paintbrush, they're amazing, they're investable. We're actually looking at how you served. And why that is that we believe that how you served, how did you fail? How did you handle tough situations? And then how did you learn? And how did you keep that track record going, whether you went to additional schooling or you were enlisted and you went to college or whatever it may be, or got certifications, and then how have you been applying that in the professional arena, the non-military arena? And when we actually do a formal diligence with our companies, I don't outsource this, I personally conduct the reference checks. And I'm going to go back and talk to somebody you served with. And I want to know, on your worst time, now that time could have been under combat conditions in Afghanistan. It could have been under a tough project that you were leading in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I mean, it doesn't, I'm not so swayed by that. But every step of the way, I want to know, like, you have this adaptability, this resiliency, this decision-making capability, because there's a premium to it. And once I noticed last year that this mirrors the parallel that I've actually faced, my first job out of the military at 28 years old, I went to a bank, and I got the thank you for your service, and they made me take a 22-year-old's job. And I remember going, wow, and they didn't do it out of being disrespectful. They couldn't attach that premium. And so we specifically are hunting for that premium. And again, it has nothing to do with what school you went to, whether you were a Navy SEAL or you flew Apaches or you killed Bin Laden yourself. It has everything to do with how do you learn and how do you lead and how do you fail, right? And how do you impact the ones around you? I am, by the way, not the expert on it. If anything, I have made many more mistakes in my personal and professional career possible. But because I have a diverse experience set already in my 18-plus years out of college, I've just seen a lot of great leaders and a lot of bad leaders, and then I've been both myself. So to answer your question, what do we look for in an entrepreneur? It is that learning capability. I personally tend to lean a little bit more towards the post 9/11 veteran, and the reason why is my service straddled 1998 to 2006. Really active duty 98 to 2004. I was an infantry officer to start in Vicenza, Italy, transitioned after 9/11 to military intelligence. And what I joke to folks is if anyone you meet straddle the late 90s Clinton era DOD and the post 9/11 Bush years, the rapidity, the intensity of paradigm shifting is unprecedented. I'd actually argue the last 15 years, that military environment, obviously combat has a big role in that, but that military environment, from processes to technology to decision making to all those things that every team in the world, whether no matter if they're in the military or not, fights with, it's been unprecedented. And so if you've operated in that environment, whether you just served from 2010 to 14, or you're still on active duty now, whatever it may be, you may be a lieutenant colonel, you may be an E5, whatever it may be, the environment that we're hunting for has been very volatile, very uncertain, very complex, and lots of ambiguity, VUCA. And then that I just know for a fact that you've got this gearing of being dropped in situations that you're ill prepared for with a very high risk profile, a lot of unknowns, and told to go really fast. Well, everybody talks about it, and we write blogs about it, we write books about it, we pay general officers lots of money to come do speeches, but how do you unlock that in a commercial setting? And we believe if you're trying to start a business, that's a very, very special, precious asset that frankly has no objective criteria. So unfortunately right now, all of our criteria is subjective. So when people come to me, I mean, they're trying to gun to, they're trying to index to me, right? Because he's a venture capitalist. They're going to try to hit my hotspots. They're going to check me out on LinkedIn. They're going to do all their intel work on me. And it's really just more of that instinctual bit, right? Getting to know you. I don't go fast. I got to put my hands on you. I got to see you. I got to see you in person. I got to have a beer with you. I got to maybe get in the car with you a little bit. I just need to know who I'm dealing with, and then have some of my investors maybe connect with you, or maybe we have a lot of shared folks in our backgrounds. But it's more of understanding you and your founding team. I don't need them all to be ex-military either. To be honest with you, I prefer they not. Your ability to attract really highly talented peers who did not serve, but they are equally as passionate of what you're trying to solve, That's impressive, and I don't see that very often. I have seen it 4 times, and those are our first 4 investments. And when you see that, you're like, wow, okay, these folks know how to put a team together, operate under really tough conditions, and a lot of confusing situations with very little resource, with the cards stacked against you. And how do you react to it? How do you do it? So it's a long answer, short question, but I'd say number 1 is that how you served in that work environment. I'd say number 2, and this is important, you and I were talking about this Ian the other day, sometimes folks, and I have been that eager beaver, overconfident guy myself, and sometimes I am still today, but sometimes really driven ex-military folks are sometimes uncoachable, either in general or in that moment, and they may not know it. So if I went to West Point and I was an infantry officer, and I went to Harvard Business School, and I was an Oxford scholar, I mean, all these great gates, performance gates, and you've done really well in your career, and you've never really failed in a tough manner until you got to the startup environment. How do you react to that? Or you were, you were enlisted, and you were. I mean, one story. I'll leave him nameless, but he was homeless, joined the military as a way to put his mom to get her basically money. So he enlisted at 18 so that he could send all of his money back so she could have a home. Served really well for 4 years and never went forward in any combat role, but did some great stuff back here. Left the military, put himself through school through his own money and scrapping and working multiple jobs. And then that guy went and started a startup company. He's not one of our portfolio companies, but he's a friend. That's a special individual. That's someone that we want to back. So that kind of coachability, because he's a function of others helping him. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and by the way, I'm pretty sure he employs 10 employees right now, and a few of those are veterans, because I know the same guy. But that's exactly right. And you said about 90 things that are really valuable to our community in that soliloquy. But you're exactly right. How you served and how coachable you are. And I can, like myself, my personal career. I mean, like I was a pain in the ass to a lot of my bosses. I, don't even my.
You still are.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I still am. So, but there's a distinction with being, a little hard-headed about kind of your mission and saying, hey, I think that this is the mission that we're trying to accomplish, and this is how I think we should accomplish it, and being able to also take feedback. And I think that there is definitely there's a fine line in the military where you can't be the person, you can't be the yes man, yes. Yes woman, whatever it is, and not ever have any opinions of your own and not be able to forge your own path and make your own decisions. But at the same time, that coachability is really, really, really important. Do you have folks that have talked to you that are kind of the I guess eccentric would be the right word, but the folks who are like, this product is revolutionary and will change the world, and kind of because of their veteran, whatever it is, prowess, or like, and take it or leave it?
Have I seen folks like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, military is it's probably the most diverse organization in the world. A lot of people don't understand that. So you literally have Mensa genius level folks down to folks like my brother, who was told by a judge to enlist in the Marine Corps. You've got all walks of life. You've got people who aren't even American citizens. So, yeah, the military community, veteran community, as they step out, they're very diverse, thinking, everything else. But if you are geared that one way, if I hear your question correctly, you've got to compliment yourself, right? So I do too. So one of the reasons I talk about coachability, and I'm sometimes really bad at, just couple of my mentors see this podcast, they'll probably laugh and say that I am not coachable. But I also think a lot of folks, as you guys, as individuals, especially veterans who start off the most impressionable years of their careers, 18 to 25, 22 to 27, whatever it is, and they do their whatever, if they volunteered and weren't told to do it, they volunteered, they served on something bigger than themselves. And I hear time and time again that veterans, when they leave and they try to do something, go work for a nonprofit, start a company, go work in a large company, they get disappointed really, really fast because they're trying to almost instinctively, whether they know it or not, replicate that sort of shared purpose, vision, teamwork that they kind of assumed that was there, and they struggle to try to replicate it. And when I find these veterans, the more kind of that rifle shot that I'm talking about, like the ones you want to back or help or support, you can see them trying to do that. And so I react more to those coachable veterans who, frankly, like our first four, they don't care about wearing the skinny jeans and having the Taliban beard and living in Palo Alto and wearing the earbuds and all that stuff. That's kind of like the vanity around being a tech startup founder. What they care most about is solving a problem. And they lose sleep over it. Like, I lose sleep around why aren't we doing more to accelerate veteran entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So the whole reason I started TFX, I have zero experience in this, and I'm teaching it to myself. I've taken huge personal risks to do it. So when you look like at a Nick Black, our first investment with InKind, he's it. He could care less what you call him. Call me, like, I laugh. I'm like, you need a title for your business cards. And he's like, okay, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care, because I'm not stopping until I solve the nonprofit space, or that world-changing trillion-dollar marketplace idea, right? He doesn't care. He just saw something wrong, and he believes that he was put on this earth at this very moment to do this. Greg Adams and Chris Hurst, Stephen Riley, Sean Madej at Stabilitas. Have a coffee with them if anybody's ever in Seattle or Denver and LA. Have them tell you why they started Stabilitas. And you'll never hear the word of, well, I wanted to go work for myself, or, hey, I want to make a bunch of money, or I wanted to be part of a startup or small business. None of that. They're trying to solve a problem. So that coachability kind of lends itself to the third leg to your question, what we look for in a founder. So how you serve, coachability. The third one would be, I would say, Ian, that servant leader. We were all taught it. We all read about it. Okay, I'm not the example I try to be every day of my life, but what I've found is that our founders, because they're mission driven themselves, they are great civic servants with their teams in their communities in which they operate. They tend to volunteer more. To your point on the guy we both know that we mentioned a minute ago, he will hire more than his fair share of veterans, which we know is a known data point. Veterans are 30% more likely to hire more veterans if successful. Right? So there's a social component to what we're doing at TFX. So we're going to start next year counting how many veterans are employed across our portfolio companies. Not that we're putting pressure on it, but it is a social tag-along to what we believe is we're going to go for above-average returns because of the way we connect these folks. They just have that sort of, okay, I don't know how to do this. I give that to you. I'm humble enough to tell you I've never managed a P&L. Okay. Well, what type of help do you need? Do you know anybody who can do this? Okay, well, if we are all as investors opening our personal networks to a portfolio company, man, you got to handle with kid gloves. So you got to be coachable. But you also, to your point, Ian, you can't just sit there and nod and go, oh, well, investor A or CEO B or amazing podcaster C says that we shouldn't look at HR benefits until a Series A. I've actually heard this. And I said, that's the biggest horse crap I've ever heard in my life. Okay, if you are employing people who have families and have other interests outside of spending 24 hours a day working on this company, you need to understand how benefits work. What is affordable, what isn't? What is legally needed and what isn't? And don't wait for some artificial gate of funding to say, oh, this is when we now think of this and this, because that's what the YouTube video said of, at Stanford or in Austin or some incubator in Florida. It has to be your own decision because you're taking care of your employees. So I like all three of those levers. Long-winded answer to your short question, but maybe when you produce this, you can cut half my stuff out.
No, as someone who pontificates regularly, I appreciate it.
I hope I'm not pontificating. So
no, I'm kidding. No, that's great. How you served, how coachable are you, and are you a servant leader? I mean, it's really easy, and I think that one of the things that when I've talked to other investors and different folks is, especially folks that either don't have any veterans in their portfolio or whatever, and they're asking, well, why should we invest? And it's like, well, your thesis, states things like that, and if you were to look at more companies of that have X, Y, or Z, if I could bring you more companies that have folks that are coachable, have a track record of success, and have leadership capabilities. Would you be interested in that? They're like, yeah, I would. It's like, well, where do you find those, right? So I love that those are your three kind of metrics that you use, and I also how you learn, lead, and fail, and looking at that. We had someone post, I'd rather learn from other failures first, and that's part of the reason why we're doing these. We do our Vetrepreneur growth sessions, and why we're doing this series. And I think that that's important too. Is like, that lifelong leadership and being able to learn and adapt. What do you? So in product specifically, so that's kind of what the people side of things. For the product specifically, obviously you have 4 investments now, but what are you looking for, and what types of things are on your radar?
Sure. So I'm new to a lot of this in terms of the startup side, but everybody on this call should understand that if you're pitching to an angel investor, like a high net worth person, if you're pitching to an angel group or a VC firm, I don't care what comes out of their mouth, we are all beholden to our own personal experiences. So whoever that person is, whether they're the 28-year-old Ivy League trained young associate at one of the largest VC firms, whatever they studied and whatever they have an affinity for, or whatever their kind of interests are, deal they most recently did, or where they worked, or all those things will arm them with the context they need to talk about what you're doing. So for us, we're industry agnostic, and I mean, you know this, but for everybody on the call, so we're industry agnostic. So because we're really hunting for these leaders, but for this first fund, we set technology and tech-enabled business services, which are 2 obnoxiously wide remits, but it allows me to see a lot of things in a compressed period of time. I mean, if I see something that's virtual reality, I mean, I could pull 5 all-nighters trying to understand, self-educate, and I could probably get there, but would that add any value? So no different than we want our entrepreneurs to have some domain expertise in what they're trying to solve, versus they in their idle time at work or in school, they've kind of dreamt up an idea, but they've never worked in that industry or have direct, they didn't feel the pain firsthand. Same thing applies to how the venture firm, angel group, angels is thinking. So with that as a context, you're looking at me. So for me, as a first gate, kind of your primary filter, I would say anything that has an enterprise nature in right now, I just can understand it better and faster. Especially as I meet, the vast majority of the people I meet are virtual. So you're on the first phone call, second phone call, and for everybody on the call, I don't know if you have like a voting or a Smileys or whatever, raising capital sucks. I'm doing it myself. How many coffees and how many. I mean, I was talking to a potential investor recently, and I won't name who or where, but it bled over in time because I thought this person was interested, and it ended with some marriage counseling. Nick Black will tell you he was pitching a billionaire in New York, and he flew up there specifically to meet the guy, and the guy started tearing off pieces of paper of his presentation and started eating them. Okay, so these are extreme examples, but the point is you're being told no way more times you're being told yes, and that can really weigh on you and mess you up. So raising capital stinks. So you want to be very, very specific and diligent, and use some of that military training, backwards plan, set some outcomes, be time phased, understand the situation every time you engage with someone, send follow-ups, track things. So if you were to do that with me, you would know that, okay, if I have 4 companies, look what's already in my portfolio, they're all B2B, right? So that would tell you, okay, Brandon and TFX are probably indexing a little bit towards B2B, but one's in Seattle, one's in DC, one's in Charlotte, and one's in Charleston, South Carolina. So you couldn't deduce much from there, right? Maybe more East Coast based, but there's enough information out there to let you tell you what it is. But for me, it's B2B, more in the enterprise. I don't understand. I mean, if anybody wants to look right now, I'm not even on Facebook. So I mean, I don't believe in Facebook personally, but I understand why it exists.
Don't tell marketers that. I
know, but that's why I understand why it exists. Trust me, the marketing on Facebook is ridiculous. But I'm also 40 years old and I have no use for Facebook. So, but I understand. I understand why Snapchat and all these. I understand that. But anything that's directly consumer facing, where you're trying to rapidly increase users and eyeballs and get some marketing dollars, I understand that market. I've been exposed to it a little bit. I'm not an expert. I just don't. I can't understand how you monetize it, which is the primary lens I'm looking at. So once I get past it, yeah, this female or male entrepreneur, veteran entrepreneur, series of, or group of entrepreneurs, founding team, pretty awesome. Okay, now let's talk about the product. If it's more business to business facing, I just have the context for it. I can go, I can see that going through HR, and holy cow, that's gonna go to procurement. Whew, and that's going to be tough. And then how are you going to implement that with the VP of sales? I mean, I can start to turn that over in my head a little easier. The last thing I will tell you is that as a practicality, you mentioned a minute ago, Ian, was something's going to change the world, right? I think you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not us. You know, we're not looking to completely detonate existing markets. We're not looking to create brand new markets. There's a lot of really great VC firms out there, a lot of them located where you are, Ian, who can fuel that and understand that and go with you on that journey. But no, we're more finding people who've taken existing industries and find massive dislocation and trying to do something about it.
Yeah, it's super helpful. I mean, and since you talk to so many entrepreneurs that are raising capital, what are they doing real wrong? What do these folks suck at when they're talking to you about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to say suck because I tend to fail most days, but the question I ask most, and this I think I've told you the story, and some other VCs that I've started to network with have agreed with me and kind of laugh at it. So if you have a VC firm that all they've been doing for 30 years is venture capital work, what you probably have is nothing but finance folks, really talented finance folks in the business. They weren't CEOs, they're not general managers, they're not. It's been a while since they've worked in sort of the business unit corporate arena, and that's no problem with that. I think that's just fine. But since I just came off of that, and I was the person that's head of the strategy department, and I would constantly put before my billionaire CEO ideas, and I'd have all this data, and it'd be through PowerPoint and pitch meetings. I literally would call them pitch meetings, and he'd sit there, and at the end of the meeting, he'd go, "Thank you very much." And I said, "Well, aren't you excited about this?" And he says, "No." You know, I mean, I kind of harken back to that. So if I was at a large company, for everybody on the call, think about this. If you're already at a large company on this call, you'll understand. Have you ever been through a light budgeting sequence or proposal? Okay, so I'm going through a 2017 proposal. I have a 10-slide PowerPoint deck. I get 30 minutes with the boss. And I'm going to tell him or her, I'm going to say, "Listen, hey, I know we're going through budgeting. It's tight times, right? Money is limited. I want to show you this idea. That's $1 million of incremental spend that's not inside the budget. 99% of chance of failure. 100% of the people in this room think it's a waste of money. I've only dabbled in that marketplace. And by the way, here's my use of funds, which is a slide that has 3 circles." He would fire me. I'm not kidding. I've actually run this scenario by my former boss. And he kind of laughs. He's like, "Really?" And I was like, so I've actually had to send him pitch decks, like how, there's lots of YouTube videos and books written and all this other stuff of how this stuff works out in the U.S. And every executive that I send it to who's never been exposed to venture investing, they laugh. Like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, people will pony up $1 million off that PowerPoint and off a 60-minute conversation, right?" I'm just saying everybody's got their different investment needs and processes. So what I would tell entrepreneurs, especially veterans, make sure put your hand over your heart and say, "Why am I raising this amount of money now?" Or thinking about it. And have good answers for that. I mean, have the PowerPoint, have the pitch. I mean, you need all that stuff, right? You got to play the game. Have your 60-second elevator stuff and do all that stuff. I have no problem with it. But just, don't dabble. And don't go, "Oh, I think I'm going to raise $750,000. Okay, perfect. What instrument are you using? I don't know. I'm thinking about a safe note or maybe a convertible note. I don't know. Okay. Well, why are you raising that amount of money? Well, and then you start to get some looseness in thinking. Well, why now? Like it's September 15th. Do you know how many days we have to the election? That's a big thing. Do you know you're in Q4? Do you understand how people react to global equity markets? Do you know how your customers have fiscal years and do buying freezes in Q4? Do you even know any of that? Do you know that we're due a recession next year? Okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying you have to be a genius on all these questions, but you're pitching finance people. Okay? Financial people think this way, right? So make sure you have a good answer for that. And if you're just having a first call, give it up up front. "Hey, I don't know if I want to raise money or not, So what all I want from you today is some advice.
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Don't let them lock into this normalized pitch. Okay, great. You just want my advice. Perfect. Now I loosen up. Now I'm listening a lot better. So pick one or the other. That's the first thing. I'd say the other thing, Ian, because you and I previously talked about this, in terms of raising capital, surround yourself with really solid folks. And solid folks does not mean titles. I'm talking about people who have domain expertise in the thing you're trying to solve. And don't be cheap about it. I'm surprised at how few startups actually don't have, they don't tell me who, they tell me kind of who their potential team would be if they go full-time, or if they're all full-time, who that team is. They may have a board, they may not. But they don't use advisory boards. Why not? You give them a small piece of equity, an option, something very nominal, get the skin in the game. But why do I care about that? I care about that because you, having limited experience in the market you're trying to solve, plus your military experience, so you were doing fundamentally something else, you've been able to take an idea, set it in motion, and surround yourself with some pretty top-notch folks. Now, if you're a West Pointer and all I see are your West Point classmates, or a 3-star and a 2-star, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Well, I'm talking about like you're trying to, like, look at Stabilitas in Seattle. They are trying to solve some really nasty issues in travel security, corporate travel security. Their advisory board is international. They have an Australian national, they have a Dutch national, and these are world experts, as in they ran large software companies and are inspired by what they're doing. And I was like blown away. I don't see a bunch of folks I went served with unless it was relevant to what you're trying to solve. So do the and the third one I would say, Ian, would be functional experts. So I find a lot of veteran entrepreneurs, and this is probably true for every entrepreneur, but a good lawyer, a good lawyer who won't mess around with you, take the time to find one. Don't just say, oh, well, the Techstars people recommended Sally Joe. No. Like, go meet them, put your hands on them, look at them, spend 30 minutes on the phone with them, get some referrals. Second thing would be a fractional CFO, a real fractional CFO. And I've been really disappointed here in Charlotte and some other places, and I know it happens in every city, but if you've never worked in a large corporation, you don't understand the difference between a controller and a CFO. Okay, and they're very different behaviors. So anybody who's in the military, there's different MOSs and styles and stuff like that, but yet, they blend together. So a lot of folks who are in business to try to help startups are nothing more than seasoned accountants. So they can record your books, right? But they may fall down a little bit trying to help you through future tax considerations for, are you going to be a C Corp or a multi-member LLC or an S Corp? They may struggle to help you go through some legitimate 3-year sales projections off of nothing, no base, right? So it's the expertise. So those would be the 3 things.
Know why you're raising today. Surround yourself with a really solid domain expertise and an advisory board, and find good functional experts, to include a lawyer and fractional CFO. That's really good advice, and we have talked about a few of those things, but it's a concise way of looking at it. One of the things that we talked about with Andrew Goldner earlier this week on Vetrepreneur Week was if you're making money and you have no idea why you are making money, and you go to an investor and say, hey, I want more money, and they're like, well, because we've made $100,000 or whatever. And the investor's like, well, how'd you make the money? And they're kind of like, well, we just kind of threw shit against the wall and this is what happened. And kind of he was talking about how if you can show, hey, this is like, we know exactly kind of like why this money is coming in, and we can say if we get more money at this current time over the next 3 quarters, we're fairly or our hypothesis that we can increase revenue to whatever. But I think that it was interesting because you're saying know why you're raising today, and I think that time of the year is I hadn't heard you say that before. It's such an interesting point, and I know like budget cycles and all of that absolutely crush sales reps all the time. Like absolutely crush, especially like when I was selling, same sort of thing. and you just don't really account for that sort of stuff. So it's interesting that you're talking to folks, and I would imagine that most people don't have a good answer to that.
They don't, and I can't say our first four do either. But we quickly recognize that, but they're coachable, so I can glue onto them more resources. So I have like for one of my CEOs, he readily admitted to me in a meeting in front of others, hey, I've never managed a P&L before.
Yeah, but how would
it's like, yeah, but no, but some of these folks will sit there and go, well, yeah, well, I manage this many people and this much equipment in the military, or they would, well, I kind of was a consultant, so it was, they'd be fearful of having that humility. And this guy was like, no, I could use some help. No problem. I have a 45-year-old tech software CEO who's one of the TFX investors who's waiting to do this. Waiting. Right? And so I was like, hey, why don't you spend an hour each month for 3 months and just, I don't need to be on the call. It's just coaching. He's like, you think he would do that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the thing what I don't get about that is, so, and I wrote the article the other day about how I get started in sales, and like how the thing that no matter what your job was in the Army, and people will be like, oh, you sold all the time in the Army. No, you didn't. You did not sell a product to a buyer that closed a contract or whatever it was and sent you, a DocuSign back, and that went to your finance team, and that resulted in money for your company. You have never done that. No matter who you are in the military, you have not done that, unless it's some super weird job. So for people to be like, well, I've sold a ton. No, you actually haven't. And when you talk to a recruiter or whatever, you sound dumb, because you're like, now, granted, you have the skills in which you are selling to a stakeholder that's very similar to that, and you can compare that, but you haven't actually done it. I mean, the vast majority of veterans have not ever managed a P&L, correct? So I'd imagine that is something that people would be.
Yeah, yes and no. I think to the letter of the law, maybe, but make no mistake about it. If you're an E5, you're in charge of your folks 24/7 and their families. Period. You know this. If you're a young officer, okay, so it's a different responsibility. All I'm saying is that the financial bit. I find some veterans in there. Ooh, I'm not a finance person, or they're almost shy about it. Okay, but do you have critical thinking? Probably. Oh, I'm an infantryman. I didn't have critical thinking. Well, that's incorrect, because I was one too, and that's all you're doing. So your critical thinking is, like you were just saying, like the gentleman you just mentioned. If someone answered that question back to me, I would know they weren't a high-performing veteran. Because just by nature of taking the risk of what they're doing, and they probably have families or not, but it's a huge risk to go be a startup person. Or if they're kind of working on the product on the side on nights and weekends, I mean, they're giving up a lot while they're working full-time. And there's a lot of sacrifice to go down this path. You're not going to isolate the variables and figure out what levers. You think I'm 9 months into my fund and I'm sitting there going, I don't know how I got investors. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I would know instantly that you're not someone that we would invest in. Okay, but that's not normally the case. I will tell you, of all I'd say that's probably less than 10% of people I talk to. Most people may say, that's something, Brandon, we're trying to figure out. We thought this would work. When I went to start this, we had to raise this capital. I had to wear these 12 hats. I had to get her involved, and then this happened, and that happened. Then we went to this conference, and we did this, and then we had to do the website. Yes, I don't mind the sort of randomness in terms of the activity, but they have to isolate the variables. And trust me, a driven entrepreneur, veteran or not, if they get some sales, if they're not paying attention to what caused that there's something like significantly wrong with them, like what's between the ears of that entrepreneur. But most of them do. They know that. But they're hunting for there. The problem is they find one variable. It's like telling your mom you like one new thing that she cooked for dinner, and then she makes it every day for the next 3 months, right? I find some entrepreneurs like, oh my gosh, if I just send this out with Google, or if I pump this up on Google AdWords and I do this over here, I got 10-fold return. Well, let's just do it 10 more times. I get 100 times return. No. I don't mind that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Root cause analysis, what happened, what levers, and this is where you want experts. I'm not a software sales expert. I'm not a technologist. I can barely hang in a technical discussion. Okay, but I know how to put smarter people than I around a problem and push. And that's what all these folks have done. Okay, I've got someone who can answer it. I don't know. I'm out over my skis, but maybe we should dive in it. And this is where that advisory board would come in. It blows my mind that everybody's like, oh, we got to have a VP of sales. And you and I have talked about this. Why?
Yep.
You're going to pay $150K for someone to come in and you have no infrastructure, your product sucks, and you can't even manage your day-to-day? I mean, what's he or she? They're a hired gun, right? But no, every blog post, every podcast, all the other successful folks who wrote a book after they exited, they all say you got to have a VP of sales, like they're a rainmaker. I don't know any industry where that works, any, startup or otherwise, right? So there's got to be a natural progression to how you get to sales and how you get there, and solve some of this through your advisory board. Get more people connected to what you're trying to do. Play that veteran card. People are more likely to help you than otherwise if you make it known that you're a veteran and you're humble. I don't know how to do X. You're an expert in X. I'm not asking for money, but do you have 30 minutes to give me some tips? And by their nature, if you're a good person, what happens? 30 minutes turns into an hour. They make 2 connections. Now you've entered their network. Now you're starting the network-driven approach, right? And that's what we're doing from the other side.
That's exactly right. I was talking to someone who started a capital fund for like a Fortune 50 company back in the 80s, and he's dying to help vets. That's what he wants to do. He's a vet. He feels super passionately about it, but he doesn't know where to find him.
That's
but
true.
You would be terrified to reach out to this guy and say, hey, I'd love to know about, the whatever industry that he was in. I just would love to pick your brain, and I'd really appreciate it, and I'm working on something hard that I'm passionate about. But you'd be terrified to reach out to this person. But he is looking for that, and he's looking for boards, and he's looking,
But what's the worst thing that they can do? Are they going to shoot at you? No. Are they going to reach in your bank account and take your money? No. Are they going to take away your home? No. They're probably just not even going to answer you. And that's, what I'm saying? But that's what what I have been finding is the early bird gets the worm. So the really driven, high-performing veterans know how to manipulate LinkedIn and their graduate networks and professional networks and church networks, family networks, whatever it may be. But there's no systemization to that. It's hard to scale that and maintain that once you drop into it, right? So, but if you had like TFX, who's systemically building a ready-to-fire network like that, then you just need to matchmake. It's a little bit more efficient. But I tell folks all the time, just be a good person. Don't be some other types of people. If you're going to play the veteran card, be a good steward. I expect you to volunteer in veteran advocacy groups and pay it forward. I expect you to be a good steward of that. But ask the meeting. Consumers, you know this as well as I do. A survey of from last year, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, I forget the exact percentage, which is a large percentage, but consumers are more likely to buy a good or service from a veteran.
Yeah, 79%, yeah.
Yeah, 80%, right? Okay, so if you argue that the veteran community is 22 million plus spouses, 3 to 4x, or family members, you're talking about almost 1/3 of our country has a 1 degree of separation from the military. And the military is everywhere. Veterans are everywhere, right? And so use that network. Use on that. But you got to be a good person, because the moment you abuse it and you don't pay it forward, once you start that, networking approach, it'll backfire on you, right? And I've seen folks do that. They're like, oh, I used the network, I raised my round. I don't give any updates to anybody. I don't talk to anybody. I don't check in on them. I kind of just use them for me. And I see this, by the way, with folks transitioning from the military trying to find roles. So they'll network heavy, lots of coffees, lots of meetings, lots of chats. They build up this network, get all people excited about them. They find their job, and then they just don't talk to you anymore. It's like, okay, well, wait a second. I was trying to help. I'm invested in your goal. So if you're a startup, know that it's out there, and get as many people entangled with your concept as possible.
And that's whether it's customer feedback or just feedback, right? It's all feedback, good or bad, and hearing those sort of things. And I don't want to make this, go more in depth onto the networking piece, but I think that what you're saying is be a good person and be helpful to other people. And I know that for sure I reached out to 1 million people when I got out, and I tried to follow up with all those people, and I'm sure I missed some people. But the thing that, as terms of giving back and talking to other entrepreneurs or talking to other people, it's something kind of simple that you can retweet somebody's stuff on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and follow them on LinkedIn, ask them some questions, and then reach out and say, hey, I like the way you think. I would love to have 25 minutes of your time to talk about blank because I'm working on blank, which is a very specific ask. And it's not the, hey, I just want to talk to someone, because that's not a very specific ask.
Or I don't give you an ask, and they know, they get the drop, right? I'm a halfway wealthy younger veteran. I'm on LinkedIn, and there's I could probably make a list of 35 of them. I've talked to them all myself. I have a bit of money. I made a couple $1,000,000 on an exit. I'm not 100 years old. Okay, I have a vibrant network. Trust me, those guys' doors get knocked on 1,000,000 times a day, and they tell it back to me all the time. So what do? A lot of times they feel so bad that they can't answer the call. They just ignore all of them.
Yep.
Right, and so that's the downside of it. But if you're genuine and you start building networks, what's going to happen is the door opener you need is probably 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon away, right? But you've got to show the willpower and the persistence and be a good person to follow that thread, and then keep that network vibrant. I just use email. Some guys like Stabilitas, he uses every single person that comes in contact around that he gets a chance to talk to them or meet the team. Greg puts them on a MailChimp thing. They can opt out. I mean, my distro is up to 500. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever it takes, but it requires maintenance, it requires some time. And a lot of times I hear, well, I don't have time for that. I haven't slept in 4 days, and my husband's going to kill me because I've been traveling, trying to raise money, and I get all those pressures. But if you're going to dip your toe in the networking arena, as a way to, like you were saying, what makes you successful early on, if you're going to use networking to shorten your learning to a very small ramp so you can make a go, no-go decision on a certain decision point, you don't just do it just to use it. Do it to play long ball, whatever way you determine that to be. But if you're using a veteran, like, hey, you're the CEO of this company, right? Just throw a Hail Mary and see if he or she will respond through a LinkedIn end mail. Let's say they respond. Don't ask them for money. Set the scene for them, right? They're very busy people. They've been going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you just literally told them to get out of a moving car and look at you for 10 minutes. Okay, hey, so on LinkedIn to you, we share some common bits. Set the scene. Hey, real quick, in 60 seconds, I'm not going to pound you with decks and all this other stuff. I just want to tell you, this is what we're doing. I thought some people mentioned your name. I thought you'd be a good blah, blah, blah. I have one thing to ask. Get them to focus on one thing. Okay. If they like what they hear and you're a good person and you treat them well and you write them a thank you note and all that other stuff, it'll pay itself forward. If you get them on the hook, what I'm saying is get them in the fight. Make them advisors. Check in with them every month. See what you can do for them, right? And as their affability grows for you, they're going to open up their network and they're going to work for you.
Yeah, that's great. I want to switch into due diligence a little bit. I just, you don't have to give the secrets of your trade here on what you do. I know the TFX secret sauce for due diligence, but
there is none.
But no, you talked about the fact that you reach out to people's old leaders, and I'd imagine old soldiers and things like that. Tell me a little. I didn't know you did that. I didn't know kind of what level of fidelity that sort of stuff is done. So I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, that's more of the reference checks. I mean, well, first of all, if you have a VC who doesn't do background checks, like criminal background checks on you and your founding team, that should raise some eyebrows. I do. That's basic stuff, and just do it. I've heard horror stories of even veteran entrepreneurs who, by the way, had a very nasty part of their record that no one knew about. They're like, oh, but no way. You're talking about reference checks. So I'm trying to actually organize myself in a little bit cleaner way. I actually would like to get to a point where I can give a one-pager checklist and say, okay, I brought this up to a point. We've been talking for a couple months. We've met a few times. I've shown a few folks. I'm really interested. The other challenge, to go off the checklist real quick, is timing. So I get a lot of veterans who come to me and they're like, hey, Brandon, you've got this amazing thing, 5 people say you're awesome. You and I know 2 people. Blah, blah, blah. Great. I'll get on the phone with them as fast as I can. Give them an hour, 2 hours. Okay, great. And then they're like, hey, are you in? It's like, okay, wow, that was fast. Okay, but I explained to them we go slow, we're new, and all that stuff. And then when I ask them the question of the third leg of why raising this much money, why now, I ask, when are you trying to close? I also get terrible answers on this. Oh, we want to close by, like today. I actually had this today. We want to close by September 30th. Then I'm not your guy. We're a small fund. we go slow, and we are literally trying to assess the leadership team and the founder team. That's what we're betting on. That just takes time. But going back to diligence, once you get up to a point, I want to be able to hand over a checklist. There's some standardized things, like I have to have, most VCs are checking financials, they're going to check all your legal filings, registrations, blah, 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 blah. I think the real diligence is probably a little irregular, and that has to do with each of our 4 times it's looked different. And that's where I need to get some of my trusted advisors, whether they be TFX investors or not, I need them to look at you and spend some time with you. So it may require a flight to Charlotte. My guys have done. Spend a day with us. I'll have you meet 10 people. Or spend 4 hours with me in a room, just spitball. I mean, whatever it may take, or I'll meet you on the sidelines of a conference, or whatever it may be. And I don't have a good way for you on that, but in the first 4, it's really trying to, hey, what do you think of her? What do you think about that team? You know, that's the first bit. Oh, I really like, unbelievable, unbelievable, unbelievable. Now, all along, you're learning about the product and the market. Oh, I really like it, I really like it, I really like it, and you start building momentum. So I don't have any special sauce yet there, but I'm working towards getting some concrete gates to get through. Over time, and we're going to actually do this in retrograde, we're going to do some behavioral testing. I'm a big believer of it, so we're about to put all of our companies through StrengthsFinder. I'm a Myers-Briggs fan, but StrengthsFinder is what we're going to start with. At no cost to them, we'll do it. I want to see some common traits, no different than like Delta or DevGuru or some of these more elite organizations. They're looking at the same thing. Is it IQ? Is it the biggest, fastest, smartest? Is it youngest, oldest? You know, there's got to be some common traits that we're looking for, and put some more objective criteria on them.
If you're looking for IQ, you can just rule all the West Point guys out, because we're low on that.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that West Pointers only talk to West Pointers, so you can kind of just put them in the box.
That's not true. We're on the call right now. We have tons of folks in our community that are not West Pointers. Tons and tons.
No, but it all parlays into it. So, but make no mistake about it. I take managing other people's money incredibly seriously. I came from very humble beginnings. I'm not a wealthy guy yet. Everybody assumes that venture capitalists are super wealthy. Some of them are. Sure, they drive the fancy cars, they hang out with the big people. I'm not. My wife and I are both in the military. We come from small towns. My whole family was in the military. I plan to make a bunch of money off of this, don't get me wrong. But I'm driven, just like our founders. I want to solve this. I want to create more veteran entrepreneurial success stories, because they'll hire more veterans, they'll start more companies, they'll be greater civic servants, they'll fuel the top-notch veteran nonprofits, and it'll all kind of build a bit of a flywheel.
Yeah, that's great. I love it, man. I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's just a really cool thesis that you have, and it's something specific that I really love the idea that you have veteran founders and how they interact with their civilian counterparts and how they bring them into the team as a data point is super interesting to me, because I know a lot of folks that are like that, and the rock stars that are out there, specifically the companies that got funding or that have gotten funding over the past 10 years. You see a lot of those teams. Any other stats or anything you want to throw out to our audience? By the way,
yeah, I would just say one real quick. People can look at the website or whatnot. 1 out of every 9 small businesses in the United States is known to be run by a veteran. That's a many billion-dollar and many tens of thousands of employment impact to our GDP. Problem is, that's where the data stops. Okay, so don't know. Scientifically, are veterans better geared to start technology companies or not? Don't know. You know, but 1 out of every 9 still living and breathing and contributing to our economy. That tells me something there. So I just think for anybody trying to start a company, just know, depending on how you served, you're specifically geared to critically think, solve, and make higher quality decisions in a very tough environment than anyone, let's just say, of similar age, similar socioeconomic upbringing, and similar education. The trick is, how do you unlock it? Right? How do you unlock it? So surround yourself with folks who are smarter than you, more capable, functionally competent, but your trick is getting them bought into the mission. If everybody on this call remembers their most inspirational leaders from the military or non-military, you probably still know them. You probably know the exact moment you failed in front of them, what they did, right? They allowed you to fail, but they didn't make you feel like failures, like Joe McChrystal talks about. Okay, do that for your team, because they'll follow you. They will follow you, because it's going to be nasty. It's going to be dirty, but it will never rival your worst day in the military.
Yep. We were talking to Julie Nadell, and one of the things that she talks to Jack always talks about is it's never going to be worse than when he was flying planes over Japan. You know, it's never going to be worse than those missions. So, you know, if you're afraid as an entrepreneur, you're in the wrong business. I appreciate it. Hey, so at TFX Shelton on Twitter, and they can shoot you, what is it, Shelton at tfxcap.com if they have any other questions. Feel free to reach out to me or Brandon. He is absolutely awesome, and if you're looking to work on some amazing projects.
Do you want to take one question real quick, Ian? Do we have time?
Fine. Yeah.
Because I blabbed on too much, and I get a chance for someone to ask a question.
Yep.
Do we have anybody still on?
I know, right? After that, we're at an hour, so usually that's when people jump off. Oh, so, sorry, I missed this. So does this apply at all to franchising and startups? And I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll let you talk about that. Obviously, you know, you're not in that business, but I'd be curious to kind of hear your thoughts.
For like franchises buying like a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's or
something like that.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge opportunity. And if I earn the right with my team to make Fund 1 successful and earn the right to go to a second fund, I want to tackle some of that. Because there's veterans doing some really cool stuff on franchises and others. There's actually some resources that have been pulled together through Vetrepreneur. I think you're aware about as well, Ian.
Yep.
I haven't talked to them yet. I also know that there's some very specific franchise lenders, kind of like private capital. They're not venture firms; they're more franchise lenders, that type of stuff. But no, it doesn't fall in our remit right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of interaction with franchise. Vet's just absolutely crushed at franchising. So Chick-fil-A, obviously, 7-Eleven, and their CEO, is a vet. J-Dog, junk removal franchises are doing really well, and Gordon Logan, the CEO of Sport Clips, founder of Sport Clips, is a vet, and he has tons of veteran franchisees. So it's a great opportunity. Not really a venture play, but yeah, they create a ton of wealth for the company and employ a ton of people. So thanks for the question.
Anything else?
Yeah. Anything else? And Paul said 100%. Actually, we had a few different answers, but yeah, we'll get some poll data out later on some of the VC stuff. We also took a bunch on the lending one with Street Shares folks. We had a bunch of different polls that we posted as well. So thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.